Welcome to Alpha Wolf Capital. I'm Tim, and I want to personally thank you for stopping by. This channel is designed to help small companies, both public and private, gain exposure with potential consumers, investors, even partners. Take, for example, today's guest, CEO Michael Murray of Kopin Corporation, who once quoted, "Our mission is to remove barriers between humans and technology to transform how people sense, interpret, and engage with their environment." They are transforming how we experience the world. At Kopin, their purpose is to create vision beyond imagination and to maximize human performance and ensure technology adapts to the human, not the human to the technology. They create application specific optical systems which include proprietary high performance micro displays and optics for cross industry customers. But I will let Michael tell you more about that in just a moment. This is not to be taken as investment advice. I am not a certified financial planner. This is for education and entertainment purposes only. I encourage everyone to do their own due diligence. Hey everybody, Tim from Alpha Wolf Capital coming at you with a long overdue follow up. But poor Michael had to go through getting a new auditor. That's always fun.
Always a great time. Although I have to admit, we switched auditors, nothing to do with Kopin. Our previous auditor had a strategy change and a level change where they didn't want to look at companies and work with companies at a certain level or below. So unfortunately, we had to change auditors mid-year at the end of the year. So the new auditor came in. It was a big lift for them. They worked super hard. Unfortunately, we missed our K. But interestingly, I've been reading the amount of misses for Ks and Qs is up 40% this quarter alone, just simply because of the lack of auditors, quite frankly. So
Interesting.
not an excuse, but nevertheless, we got through it. The K is out. We had a fantastic 2024. Our Q4 revenue was up 71% year over year, 71%. Just a great result for Q4. And we hit our $50 million revenue target that I had. So very proud of the team, even though the K was a little bit late. So.
All right, so you hit your goal, right?
Yep.
So you did what you said you were going to do. You've had some recent announcements of some awards, right?
Correct.
Um, let's talk about some of the obvious things right off the bat. Is the tariffs?
Yes.
They're going to impact you in a significant way, or could they impact you in a significant way?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we're very fortunate that our top three programs are all built here in the United States with wafer and LCDs that we build here in the United States for the United States government. So those are our top three programs. The other programs that we have enough wafer inventory, which we build in Taiwan and or Korea. So we have enough wafers internally to last 2025. So on the supply side, we're in good shape. On the revenue side, because we're a US DoD contractor, we can actually increase prices if we get tariffed because of a US tariff. So that's very unique for just US DoD suppliers. And then lastly, if you recall, when I joined the company, I did a lot of work to expand our OLED supply chain out of Asia, or at least duplicate it to Europe and the United States, because if you read the tea leaves 2, 3 years ago, like I did, it was very obvious that we needed to get those supply chains, A, out of China, and B, duplicate the ones that we did have in Southeast Asia as well, specific to Taiwan, into Europe and into the United States. So thankfully, we've done that. So we're in very good shape.
You're ahead of the game.
Yeah, we're definitely ahead of the game in that regard for sure.
Okay. I mean, Michael, I think you've done a fantastic job through a pretty
Thank you.
challenging environment, right? And you're executing, you're hitting the things that you do. I think you've changed the entire corporate culture there, right? Uh,
Yep,
whole new ball game at Kopin. I met with your team, one of your team members at the SHOT Show, right? And
that's right. Yeah,
what booth were you in? You were in the
Wilcox.
Wilcox booth, right?
Yep,
And you had the
Davis.
attachment, right, for the helmet, which I thought was super cool. And I think Wilcox actually thinks it's super cool too, right? Since you were in their booth. But
Definitely. Definitely. What's
uh
cool about that, being at SHOT Show, listening to folks, we had a bunch of ex-Army Ranger folks that came by, a couple of professional snipers. And one of the cool things, Tim, that you'll appreciate is one of the comments that it just rang true to me. It was really cool. He said, all these goggle things that they make us wear. He said, Murray, have you ever shot your weapon with a goggle on? And I said, yeah, it's really hard because as soon as you put the weapon sight up against the goggle, it starts to knock and you can't get your head in the right spot. So that's where DAVAS came into play is you take the monocle and it can move between either eye. So if you want to shoot your weapon, fine, move the monocle to your left eye. You can still see downrange, and then you can fire your weapon with your good eye. And the guy was like, brilliant. Why didn't anyone do that before? I said, I don't know. It's a good question.
yeah, I mean there was a lot of positive buzz in the booth when I happened to walk up. So you definitely have some innovative things going on, right? That seem to be taking hold, at least in the customer segment. They seem to be pretty excited about it, right?
Definitely. Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, we've
Uh,
got some good traction with Wilcox on their Fusion Claw platform, which is actually the helmet. So we take data, Tim, from the ATAC system, which is the Android team acquisition software that sits on the operator's chest. So we take that data through the helmet and present it to the weapon fighter in their eye with a see-through monocle so they can keep seeing the real-time analog world and still operate. So that's really cool. But we also are doing it for night vision goggles. So I don't know if your readers and viewers have seen Zero Dark 30 as an example. You can see in the dark with night vision goggles. That's cool. But you can't see any thermal imaging, and you can't see where your buddies are or where the bad guys are. So our dark wave attachment that gets attached to analog night vision goggles, of which there's a million of them out there right now being used specifically in Israel and Gaza, in these tunnels, our weapon fighters and allies, they can't see thermal imaging using night vision goggles unless you have an ENVG-B. And that's $75,000, $85,000 if you can get one, that is. But there are millions of night vision goggles. This snaps on. Now you've got color. Now you can see where your buddies are, where the bad guys are. But more importantly, you now have thermals being injected into your night vision goggle. And that's going to sell for around $5,000. And people love that technology because it gives you a night vision goggle ENVG like experience for $5,000. It's amazing.
right. What was it? Who was the guy's what name? Was it Nick? Did I mean was it?
Yep, Nick
Yeah,
Peterson.
yeah. Impressive guy.
He
Impressive guy.
is.
All right. So let's see. What else did we talk about last time in terms of so we talk about the physicians, right? That's how is that going? How is that progressing?
Very well. Thank you for asking. So since then, if you go to Carl Zeiss website, you can actually now see our CR3 module on their website as part of their uh, surgery suite. So very proud that they are our lead customer. We now have a production device going to them, and they're demonstrating that now at trade shows. And we're negotiating our first full production order with them. And what's really cool is I was listening to some of their use cases and some of the surgeons that they talk to, and hearing some of the things that they say, that really makes sense to them is, hey, now I can look right at my patient. I don't have to move my head to look at a monitor. I can just look at my patient and just with my eyes, look up and down and see what the camera rendering is giving me. And that's saving my neck. I'm less tired. I get better patient outcomes, and the business is great. Don't get me wrong. But when you hear that there's a surgeon that does a better surgery because of your technology, that's just super cool.
That is super
That's a
cool,
good day.
right? That to me, I mean, it's what we're all about here, right? Finding those companies that make an impact, a positive impact. I think that's a big one, right?
It's
I mean, if you can imagine, and one of the things that you did well with the headsets was because a lot of these Oculus and they're big, they're bulky, and they're heavy, right? And you guys made it very lightweight so that it's not weighing on that neck, right?
exactly right. And I actually, when I joined the company and I first wore it, I didn't like it because I didn't like how high up the eye box sits and how light it is on your forehead. But when you're wearing a surgical mask and a surgical wrap on your forehead,
Yeah,
it makes perfect sense. All the weight is at the back. The straps for the power are strapped to the back of the surgeon anyway. So once I saw a surgeon come in, gown up, put their heads, like their scarf that they put on their heads. I can't remember what it's called. It's like a beanie almost.
yeah.
And then the headset rests on that beanie. And so there's no sweat coming down. It doesn't get hot. I was like, oh, now it makes sense, right? But we wouldn't have known that without the help of HMDMD, our partners, which have that experience of being surgeons, being doctors, so they know what they need. And that's the application specific optical solution point of view that we take is if you're a sniper and you look down your rifle, you want to have that right on your cheek and you want your analog eye to look through, but just move the monocle over so you can see where your buddies are and that you're not shooting somebody that's green instead of red, right?
Right.
But to us, sitting here as semiconductor scientists and people creating semiconductors and microdisplays, we don't know that. So we have to go to our customer, really deeply listen to what they say they need and understand that application so well that when we do design an optic and a microdisplay, of which we build 4 different types and invented a 5th, we do the right display with the right optics for the right problem to solve. And that's really what's changed at Kopin.
Right. No, I love it, man. I love everything that you're doing. You've got a couple of challenges that are beyond your control that have nothing. We've talked about this before. You've got this lawsuit that was it Blue Radio that yeah, just out of curiosity, did Kopin make like hundreds of millions of dollars off of this technology that was Blue Radio?
No, GoldenEye was unfortunately an epic failure from a retail perspective. Kopin spent $22 million on developing the technology, and I don't believe we even sold a couple of $1 million worth of GoldenEyes ever.
Is that technology being used anywhere else today?
Not to my knowledge, no. It was obsoleted well before I got here.
Okay. So it was basically a technology that didn't work, that you didn't make any money on, that you spent a bunch of money on,
Right.
and somehow they came to, and maybe because it was in the hometown of the company that sued you guys, right? Came to what was the award? The jury?
Uh, yeah, so the jury awarded $5 million of contractual damages and advised the judge for 19.8 million of disgorgement damages in the case. And he is not, His Honor, Judge Kane has not ruled on that yet. It is within his gift to rule on that. But what's changed him over time is trade secret cases are becoming much more scrutinized. In
Yeah.
fact, Boeing, and you can look this up, Boeing had a very similar case to ours, where the jury awarded $71 million worth of damages, but before the final judgment, Boeing asked the judge to rule as a matter of law, and the judge threw the entire case out, the whole thing. So it went from 71 million, I think it was actually over 100, to 0, because there wasn't enough evidence that that trade secret led to any damages, number one. Number two, wasn't used. In this case, in Boeing, not in ours. I'm not saying that.
Right.
But But trade secret cases are very difficult to prove damages and also very difficult to prove that there was actually any intent. So in our case, it just doesn't make sense. Moreover, the more time that's gone on, there seems to be some changes in the testimonies that we're learning about in the case
I
in
saw
Massachusetts.
the what is it that you guys filed? What do they call it? Uh well, you had another filing that your new attorneys have put in for you, right? And it had basically very similar case to yours involving the same company with different testimony than what you had in your case. Is that correct? Am I reading that right or no?
Yeah, so to give you some context, Blue Radios also sued Hamilton, Brooks, Smith, Reynolds, our patent attorneys in Massachusetts, for other things like malpractice and some other things I didn't quite understand. I'm not a lawyer, to be clear, but it's all based around the same patents. And you can look at the patents in that case and look at the patents in our case, and they're identical. And in the case in Massachusetts, there was testimony that was inconsistent with the testimony in Colorado. So that's number one. Number two, the case in Massachusetts was thrown out at summary judgment. Judge Casper in Massachusetts found that the statute of limitations was up around the time frame of 2008, 2009, at least by 2014 is what was written. So we were able to take that summary judgment in Massachusetts and enter that summary judgment for consideration to Judge Kane in Colorado, but also highlight the differences in testimonies between the two cases by Blue Radios. In one case in Colorado, they said Kopin had no right to use the technology at all without Blue Radio's expressed consent. But in Massachusetts, it said that unequivocally Kopin could use that technology. And there were some other various discrepancies between the two testimonies. So we highlighted that to His Honor Judge Kane in Colorado. We also were able to take Blue Radio's appeal document that they are appealing in Massachusetts, this summary judgment. And even in their appeal document, there was inconsistent comments made in that as well. So we put that document also into His Honor Judge Kane in Colorado for his consideration. So as time is progressing, this case just doesn't make any sense. And it's getting, I think, a lot of focus now because of the inconsistent testimonies, because in Massachusetts, it was thrown out at summary judgment. And I don't believe, in my personal view, I'm not a lawyer, I do not believe Blue Radios will be successful in their appeal. Most appeals, when you appeal a summary judgment, if you believe, ChatGPT Law 3.0, it's about less than 20% success rate. So if that's the case, issue preclusion would say, if the judgment in Massachusetts holds, there can't be a judgment in Colorado because it's already been tried. And that's what issue preclusion is, that our new lawyers, Quinn Emanuel, which is, I think, the best appellate law firm in the country, is stating to the court, if you found the statute of
When you got
limitations.
that judgment against you, what did you have to do? What were you forced to do?
At that point in time, really nothing. We, when we received the jury verdict, what we had to do was raise capital. The stock went down. We were sitting around $2.78. And because we didn't have enough cash to cover the damages of 24.8 million, we had to put that on the balance sheet, which we did. It was audited. Everything is on the balance sheet and on the 10K. It is all there for investors to read. The reason we ended up getting a going concern, and this is important for your listeners and viewers, the reason we have a going concern currently, even though we have enough cash to cover the damages and likely the bond cost, the reason we have a going concern right now is there's no banded number, right? The auditors can't band the number. They don't know what it is because it's unknowable. The only person that knows what it is will be His Honor Judge Kane. So until we know what that number is, we'll have a going concern. But the business, Tim, is doing better than ever. We're crushing it right now. So that's what's important, and that's the only thing I can
It's
control.
important and it's sad. You know, look, I'm not a lawyer either, but I did stay at a Holiday Inn last night, so I feel like
There you go.
right?
Yeah.
I look at the thing, I look at the case, and I say, look, and I would have no problem with someone suing you and saying, hey, look, these guys sold hundreds of millions of these things, and you know they're trying to screw us. I would be in their camp in a heartbeat. When you have a product that failed and didn't do what it was supposed to do, that's called rolling the dice. And
Mm,
if it didn't work, I
right.
mean, how do you look to get paid from somebody if it didn't work? I just don't understand that, right? So say what you want, but then throw in all this other stuff. It just seems to me like, okay, instead of taking the lumps and saying that didn't work, let's start working on the next thing and try to come up with something that does work, right? That's innovation. Because not every innovation works. I'm pretty sure, right?
Well, that's the thing is when we contracted this company, um, we actually let them go originally because they weren't performing to the contract. So we were paying them monthly, a monthly installment fee, and we paid them on time and we paid them monthly to build this technology. And when they didn't deliver, we did fire them at that point in time. And then Blue Radios came back to Kopin, to the CEO of Kopin, and said, no, 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 let's keep going. We'll work for a different contract. So the contract was amended, right? So then it became a license fee type of contract. But still, Kopin didn't get what it needed to field a product. We then had to go to another company and spend money with them to get the technology to work. So it wasn't like we took their technology, then went to market with it. It was we had to go to another company, then another company to try to figure out how to get it to work. So it was an ongoing $22 million cost.
Which
That,
ultimately it didn't work. You're not using it, and that's all there is to know. And as far as I'm concerned, right? Maybe I'm all wet, but you know, look, if I can go out and come up with an idea and try to make it happen and it doesn't work, but then I can sue somebody and get $20 million for my product not working, that's a pretty good business model. Everybody should do that, right?
right. And actually the contract was capped at $7.8 million anyway. So the most that company could achieve in the contract was $7.8 million. So the whole math doesn't make sense to me either. I couldn't tell
It's a
you
new
how it's
math.
calculated. I couldn't tell you how it's calculated.
Yeah,
So
I mean, this is, you know, look, I understand that in comparison to Blue Radio, Kopin may look like, because it's a publicly traded company, that it's this, you know, mammoth, heartless corporation that just came in and tried to gut this little company. But that's the farthest thing from the truth. Kopin's never made money I mean, a profit that I can think of that lasted for longer than maybe a quarter. So I don't see you as being this big, bad, bully corporation. You yourselves are trying to climb, right? I mean, and you were doing that, and I want to make sure everybody knows all this stuff happened pre-Michael,
correct.
right?
2000. When this dates back to 2008 and 2009, the lawsuit was launched in 2016. I joined in the end of 2022. But the one thing I want to mention though, if anyone's met Dr. Fan, Dr. Fan is regarded as one of the leading technology minds in the United States. He is awarded things that were awarded to Steve Jobs, right? If you meet this gentleman who has a PhD from Harvard and a PhD from MIT, you'll know immediately that this man would respect anyone's technical ability and patents. or trade secrets for that matter. This man is a technology purist. And in 40 years, 35 being public, but in 40 years of business,
That's
he's
the other
never
thing,
been
right?
sued. He's never even had anyone talk about suing him about technology. He would be the first one to tell you, okay, you think you invented that? Great, let's work a deal. Let's figure this out. But the fact that he didn't hear and he couldn't figure this out makes me wonder. Now, I wonder how many lawsuits Blue Radios has been in. That's a good question. I wonder how many technical capabilities they have. That's a good question. I wonder what their customer reviews on Google look like. That's a good question to ask, right?
Yeah.
So looking at Dr. John Fan, 2 PhDs, has run a company successfully for 40 years, including US DoD funding from DARPA to start the company in the first place. We've been audited. We've been audited by the government. We've invested government monies. This man is now 82 years old and never been sued other than this one project
time.
where we were partnered with Verizon, Motorola, Texas Instruments, a number of different companies, but there was only one that sued us, and that was
Yeah.
Blue Radios. So to me, lots of people would say, well, why didn't you settle it? I said, well, simply put, if I sat here today and what happened with Hamilton Brooks Smith Reynolds, where it was thrown out for statute of limitations and a bunch of other things, people would be saying, Murray, why did you settle? Right?
Absolutely.
So there's a no-win situation here. My only preface and focus is making sure our shareholders are looked after, my customers are looked after, but more importantly, my people are looked after here. And
Right.
I think in the future, we'll sooner or later receive a judgment from His Honor Judge Kane. And whatever that judgment is, I fully and wholeheartedly believe we can win on appeal now, based on the evidence from Massachusetts, the inconsistent testimonies, and I believe a 3-judge federal circuit appeal board will look right through this thing. But that's my opinion. I am not.
Right. And look, I hate to harp on this thing so much, but it is an overhang on the stock.
Absolutely, it is.
You got the going concern because of it.
Correct.
But you are on the business side of it, like you said, you have executed, right? And let me ask you, how does the future look for orders and backlog and all of that?
Great question. So coming into 2025, we had about 10 to 12 million in backlog already. We've announced about 22 million in orders for our thermal weapons site on top of that. And we've also announced around 10 million of other orders in Q1. I can't say exactly how much we're sitting on right now, but there'll be some announcements shortly of new orders on top of those. So to say this back to you, we're sitting on about 40 million of orders for this year. And we have a turn rate of about 10 million of book ship business in the year, either through 3D AOI, medical, or our training and simulation business. So right there, you're at 50 million of revenue for this year. Plus, we have hundreds of millions of dollars of new opportunities that we've been generating over.
Right, you've got the what's the drone company? Adderall?
Anduril.
Right?
Mhm.
That's got the IVAS,
Yep.
right?
Yeah. So let's talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah, let's talk about that because it's important. Something I'm very passionate about here. Our big goal is, and this coming from SHOT Show and AUSA and the passion that we have around our men and women of our warfighters. If we're able to see our adversaries before they see us, we're going to come home, right?
Right.
And that's our goal. So IVAS Next is now called Soldier Borne Mission Command, SBMC. The current version, which is IVAS 1.2, was novated by Anduril. They own that contract now. The SBMC new version or upgrade version is being bid today. It's being bid now. We are bidding on it. And we also have a number of opportunities to partner with companies, major tier ones, as their microdisplay vendor. Because what's really important is companies like Anduril, Palantir, L3, Elbit, Kinetic, great company, a good partner of ours. They don't build semiconductors, Tim. They don't build microdisplays. And laser-based systems, which the previous version was and is today, those laser-based scanning systems we already know are not bright enough. They're too high power. The latency on them is terrible. So we believe that it's going to be a microdisplay plus pancake optic that is going to win the day there. But my hunch is it's going to be a much brighter display that's required. And we have the most brightest display in the United States, which is a micro LED, flying right now in a aircraft, a fast mover, actually two fast mover applications. So we think we have a good opportunity to win the micro display with Soldier PEO, and we're focused on winning that and developing that technology for whomever wins the big $22 billion award to be the microdisplay vendor. But if we do win that, that's a $450 to $750 million order over 10 years for Kopin. That changes everything, right? $35 to $45 million a year on a $50 million company. That's pretty good.
That's
But
that's pretty good.
but let's say that doesn't happen for whatever reason.
Okay.
I'm still saying that we will be a $75 million company in 2027 because our current order book around our thermal weapon sights, our aircraft displays, rotary wing and fast mover, we have line of sight to those requirements and demands until 2030. That's how far those contracts go out. Plus, we have DAVAS coming in, Darkwave coming in, CR3 coming to production. We have the Stinger missile coming in. That eyepiece is going to be very significant revenue for us. We're looking $5 to $10 million next year of revenue on the Stinger missile platform, which we think we're going to be successful with. So we've got a lot to build on. Plus, everything that's going on in Europe and Korea, we're changing our sales group in Europe to focus on European opportunities. And I announced this morning that we're potentially going to sign a partner in Europe to help us get to market more quickly. And I'm flying to Korea next week to work with a number of partners there on what their needs are. Because Korea needs an IVAS system, Europe needs an IVAS system, but also the United States also needs more than just IVAS. Because Tim, IVAS is only going to build, or SBMC is only going to build 12,000 units a year. The last I checked, we have about 120,000 troops, right?
Yeah.
What are they going to use? Well, they're going to use hopefully our IVAS solution or IVAS now, which is DAVAS, which you saw, and Darkwave, which is the night vision goggle. So
Yeah.
we've got a good strategy to grow.
Yeah, you got a great strategy to grow, and you work like a dog.
I love my work. I love this team. This is the best job I've ever had. I'm very, very lucky. We have great partners and our investors that stick with us, and they've shown us such great support. And if you look at our investor pedigree and providence, we have some of the best investors in the world in this stock right now, and they're
Look,
growing their positions.
as somebody who was in this stock probably 15, 20 years ago, this is a whole different company, man. I mean, this is just a whole different animal. Not that Dr. Fan was not a brilliant person, brilliant man. The problem was he was just constantly in R&D,
Yeah,
and that was the issue. I mean, he just constantly wanted to invent more stuff. I get it, right? If that's what you do, that's what you want to do, and he was good at it. So
yeah,
what he wasn't really good at was making money with it. That was kind of the problem, right?
yeah.
That is a very that is gone. That mentality is gone. And I've seen that the transformation myself with my own two eyes, right? Very different company, very focused. I think you have a great strategic plan. The unfortunate circumstance that arose because your stock was getting ready to break out. It
It
was it
was.
was just about to break over $3 when the jury award came out and created havoc, right? But
let me ask you this. How many shares outstanding, fully diluted, Michael?
About 153 million.
Okay, 153 million. It's getting up there a little bit, but it's still
Mhm.
not bad. All right. How are you on cash?
We have about 36 million in cash currently.
Okay. Now, part of that cash is set aside for, right? The bond or whatever. Okay. So, do you see an immediate need to have to raise more capital?
Not for the business, no, not at all.
Okay.
In fact, last quarter, if you take out legal expense, which we don't think is going to recur, we were within a couple $1 million of loss last quarter. And our models are showing that loss until Q3 of this year, we expect that loss to be 0 in Q3. So the cash burn is going away.
Okay.
And when we do appeal, whatever verdict comes out of His Honor John Kane, Judge Kane, in Colorado, that appeal is a one-time cost, and it is less than $1 million.
Let me
So,
ask you this.
hmm,
If it comes out that you owe 0, he just threw the case out, what happens?
the stock will go parabolic for sure.
And why will it do that?
The overhang will be gone, the going concern is gone, and we will have enough cash for the next 30 years. Yep.
Right? All right.
Yep.
So that is, look, let me ask you a question. If he comes out, he throws the case out, they can't appeal that, can they? Or can
Sure.
they?
Yep,
They can? Okay.
They
So it
can.
drags on longer, but it's not as big of a drag because you don't have to have the bond and the money for right?
Exactly right. Exactly.
Okay. So a throwing the case out thing, even if they want to appeal it, would be a very good outcome for Kopin. And
Yeah.
that
So
could happen
yeah, yeah.
at any time, right? Because you have no control over when this judge rules.
No control. In fact, it's a full calendar year since the court.
It is almost, huh? Because
Yeah.
I remember doing the interview after it happened, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, it's been almost a full year. I mean, what is this guy doing, man?
Well, let's put it this way. We have a lot of paper that we just put in front of His Honor. And that paper is really important. It shows issue preclusion. It shows inconsistent testimonies. And by the way, these testimonies are court recorded documents. They're not my opinion. They're court recorded documents of what
Right.
was said in the
And you
court.
can find that stuff online. It's online because I've
Yeah,
gone
it's
through it.
on pacer.org, which I don't even know how that works. But um, so there are legal issues that have been created since the judgment that His Honor has to think about and rule upon. And they're not easy to rule, I would assume. But I will say this, in my personal view and our lawyers, regardless of what the judgment is, our ability to appeal this judgment is very, very good at this point because of these issues that have gone on since the
So
judgment,
in that
or since
circumstance,
the verdict, I should say.
in that circumstance where you appeal, I mean, if it gets ruled in their favor, do you have to kick down the money, or because you appeal it, you still the money still sits in basically an escrow?
Basically, we have to take the monies that are awarded and put that up as the bond,
Okay.
plus whatever the bond interest is. So,
Okay.
um, so I've worked with our top investors, and I said, I don't know what that number is going to be, but here are all the facts. And they've educated themselves on those facts. And they came back to me and said, Michael, we're in this with you for the long haul. We will be with you in the long run. So don't worry about it. Keep focused on the business, and come what may, and we'll post the bond. And once we win in appeals, then I'm coming after all of our legal expenses from Blue Radios.
Absolutely.
Definitely coming back after them for sure.
Right.
So this is not over. We lost a battle, right? We lost a battle with the jury verdict, but we have not lost this war. Not for a second have I lost this war. And I like a good fight. And I haven't even started warming up yet. Like, I'm not even warm. So,
Well, you know, it just sucks
so,
that you happen to you get thrown into this thing. You had nothing to do with it at all, right? I mean, literally, this is not, you had nothing to do with this whole thing. So it's unfortunate because you were just getting your stride, but you that really hasn't changed. I don't see that changing. You're still rocking and rolling. You're still traveling like a madman. And I mean, I get calls from you late at night. I get calls from you early in the morning. You're a busy guy, right? So I look at it like you've made this change. It's apparent. The backlog indicates that as well. And you've
mhm,
got some new products that are really exciting people. This is
yeah.
all good stuff. All of this good stuff. What's not good is this stupid case. And if that case goes in your favor, like you said, I think it does go parabolic. I think it goes absolutely parabolic, right?
Even if the judgment is brought down, which we think it should be anyway legally, we think there's double counting in the Colorado Trade Secret Act and Defend Trade Secret Act, which is federal versus state. We think there's duplicity in there. So we think no matter what, in our view, the damages should come down. So even if the damages come down and we post the bond, the stock's going to recover because it'll be behind us at that
Right.
point in time, right? The money will be gone. It'll be in escrow in a bond, and we move on. Then it's out of the clear view. We'll get our going concern back, and we're rocking and rolling. So, but we just need a judgment. But I don't know. I don't know if the judge is waiting for the appeal in Massachusetts, which could be. He could be going through the papers, or he could be busy. We don't know. But what I'm focused on is driving the order book, the efficiency of the business, and we're adding some new technology to the fab this quarter, including optical inspection systems, which is going to decrease our OpEx so that in Q3, I'm really, really trying to get Q3 to be that quarter where we take that -1 cent loss that we had in Q4 and make it zero. If we hit zero, per share loss, I think we're going to get rewarded for that. And I think we're going to get rewarded for another great year with Kopin. And our customers are rewarding us with new opportunities and new business. So I
So
think that's what we focus on.
do you have any issues with the NASDAQ right now in terms of letter for not failing to meet? No? Because
Not yet.
you haven't had 30 consecutive days, have you? Of
Not yet.
being below a buck?
Not yet.
Okay. Okay. That's good, right? That's really good.
Yeah.
And you're flirting with a dollar again. So, um, I just think, I mean, look, if after everything you hear, is there anything, Michael, that you're super excited about in terms of new product launches potentially that that are on the
From the cusp.
yeah.
Yeah, I would say there's three things I'm super excited about. First,
Okay.
I think neural display will be ready to be demonstrated very soon. Neural display is that bidirectional display. We're putting it into a headset so that we can show the consumer companies what it would be like to remove 6 cameras from like the Apple Vision Pro or Quest as an example, or the current IVAS solution. Getting rid of 6 cameras off of your nose and the size, weight, power consumption, getting all that crap off your face, I think is going to be really cool. So that's number one. Number two, we're reinvigorating and focusing our color micro LED technology. And we've been working really hard to try and acquire a research and development contract with the Army. I think that would be very exciting because that's a precursor to potentially winning that micro display and SBMC, that big award that I talked about.
Yep.
And then thirdly, we've been working with companies in Europe to allocate resource and focus in Europe, where they're spending over $1 trillion this year alone in defense spending. But Kopin's really not engaged in that area. We're not winning in that area. So we're trying to create partnerships or even joint ventures in that area so that we can focus more and gain more of that share. If we do that, I think we're going to accelerate our growth exponentially. And like you and I were talking about, I'm going to Korea next week to have conversations around the same thing because the Koreans the Europeans, folks in the UK, they also need the technology that Kopin has, which is that near-eye display in a type of weapon sight or heads-up goggle. And we think that we can be successful there with partnerships. But I don't have the CapEx or the OpEx to go expand in those areas. I'd rather partner in those two areas with folks that know the culture, the languages, et cetera, but still deliver those technologies to those people and benefit from it. So we're working hard on that as well.
Is it all primarily defense? Would you say the bulk of the business is defense, and then you've got some commercial with the the physicians? But I mean, is that something that you're looking to balance out more, or
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So right now, defense is spending a lot of money, and they need what we have. So when you want to sell something, you go to the places that want what you've got, right? So that's simple strategy number one. Strategy number two, medical is a great place because performance matters to surgeons. Cost, not so much. Performance, yes. So that's a good market for us. Industrial, meh, it's ebbs and flows with geopolitical issues, like with China as an example. Our 3D AOI business, all of our big customers are in China and Korea and Taiwan. So we took a bit of a haircut there, and now it's de minimis in terms of the sales. But consumer is interesting. Consumer companies right now are stuck. And they're stuck because they're old designs that have these individual components like 6 cameras just doing eye tracking. That doesn't make any sense. So semiconductor theory would say, and this is my background for many years, you want to integrate, right? You want to integrate as much as you can into an integrated circuit to reduce size, weight, power consumption, yada, yada, yada. Therefore, neural display, which ingrains the eye tracking capability into the display, adds AI to track and do all the things it needs to do. That's a great solution, but we're not capitalized to take an order from a Meta or a Google or an Apple. But if we sign a contract and partnership agreement with a major tier 1 manufacturer in Korea, then we will be, right? And then it becomes a license model where we license the neural display technology to them. They spend the $1 billion that they need to on the fab, and they supply the micro displays to their top customers, which are Apple, Google, and Meta.
I look at what you do. I mean, optics, the whole optical component thing isn't going to go away. It's only going to get the demand. I think it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger because we are going to robotics without any question. We are going to autonomous without any question. What does that mean? To me, that means you need things that can see where the hell you're going, right?
That's right.
And
That's right.
somebody made a comment to me the other day that if we went autonomous here in the United States, let's say the average individual spends 35 minutes to work and back from work, right? And you gain that hour back. Let's say you pay $50 an hour. The numbers are staggering by the amount of efficiencies we get from in the economy, the savings that wind up coming. Your car, if you don't drive that much, could actually, if it's autonomous, could be out making you money where you're sitting somewhere, right?
Sure.
I mean, there's a lot of interesting things that can happen. I know we're focused on a bunch of bad stuff right now with the tariffs and everything, but when you really look at the future and where we're going with the AI, autonomous robotics, it's like, holy cow, the Jetsons is here,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I mean, there's flying cars now, in Japan and whatnot. They've got that kind of coming, and AI is driving cars. So yeah, it's an exciting time to be in technology. But again, I go back to our core ethos as a company, right? Vision beyond imagination. And what that
I
really
love
means
that.
is, yeah, it was actually Bill Mafusi, our SVP of strategy, that came up with it. You spend a bunch of money on a bunch of consultants, and the guy sitting beside you comes up with you that line. Right? So, of course, But what's important about that is, I said things earlier, like if I can see my adversary before they see me, I'm coming home, right?
Yep.
But if we can see through, as an example, thick smoke, using our 3M mask with our micro display, people in need will be saved, and so will this firefighter. And if surgeons can have better outcomes using our technology so that they don't have to keep moving their head around, better outcomes mean better patient care, et cetera. But autonomy itself is changing, right? And the use cases aren't all defense or medical anymore. It's now about robotics in industry, meaning moving a robot around a warehouse to pick certain things, and move those to an autonomous vehicle to deliver them. It's about autonomy around, making sure that schools are operating properly, from a standpoint of making sure that students can get where they need to go on big campuses and what have you. So things are changing, and we're accepting more of this type of technology. But at the end of it, take drones as an example. Controlling a drone in a first-person type viewer
Yep.
is always much better if you can still see the analog world versus a fully occluded type of mask. And that's where Kopin shines. That's what we do best. We always have for
Yep.
over the last 10 years. That's what we've been doing better than anybody else, as evidenced by F-35, family of weapon sights, sniper rifles, yada, yada, yada. So I'm encouraged about our future. Yes, we have some perturbations, but Warren Buffett, who I love and have read, always says, right, Tim? You find companies with a one-time perturbation that's a solvable problem, and the stock goes down. That's how you make money.
And then you have patience, right?
Yeah.
Then you have patience. I would suggest that at this level, your stock's sitting at 90 cents. What is the low? The low is like 60 cents? I mean, look, what's your risk reward here, right? You just heard the backlog. You just heard, the new products that are coming. You heard a strategy about expanding internationally. There's a lot of positives here, right? You're very focused on the business. You have this unfortunate outcome that will get resolved, just like Warren Buffett said, right? It's going to get resolved one way or the other, and then it's behind you.
Right.
And then you can focus on what you're doing best, which is making this a great company, right?
Yeah, and that's how I think about it from a stock perspective, and our top holders think about it that way. I think they've been adding at this level is the downside is down to 65 cents, right? The upside is $3 or $4. So I'm not selling the stock. All I'm saying is I think it's the risk versus reward. I'm fully vested in it as much as I can be. I hold a lot of shares myself.
Have you bought any shares recently in the open market?
Not recently, but I'm on a bit of a blackout until
Okay,
I think end of May.
right.
Yeah,
Okay. All right, Michael. Look, I know I took a lot of your time because we talked before we hopped on here. So, uh, I always enjoy talking to you. I appreciate it. When should we do a follow up? You think when there could be maybe some good news or what should investors be looking?
I think so. One of the big things we're going to do is actually in June. We're going to do a technology roadshow. I did one last year, which actually got oversubscribed in New York. So we're going to
Okay.
do San Francisco, Chicago, New York. And what's really cool, Tim, is I've been invited to actually do the technology roadshow. Listen to this, on the Senate floor of the Senate building. So when you walk in the
Wow.
Senate building, you're going to have a Kopin table with all of our technology there at the end of June. We're getting that set up with our congressional partner here. Congressman McGovern's going to help us with that. So the Senate and the Congress will actually get to walk by our table, pick up our gear, talk to us about what we do and how we do it, which I think is going to be really, really cool. So June will be a great time. If you're around New York or up to San Francisco, which isn't too far away, we'll get you up there.
So listen, American. This is an American company, right?
Yep,
How
absolutely. Made in America, right
Made in
here.
America, right? That's another thing to love about this company, right? So,
Yep.
I mean, these are just things that are worth thinking about, and I think the risk reward here, you know, there's one thing I can say, this, and I like this because one of my other companies that I like, actually, the CEO said this, and I've never had anybody say this: just buy one share of my stock.
Hmm.
That's what he said. And I thought about that, and I thought, you know what? That's a brilliant thing, because when you buy something, you pay attention to it,
That's
right?
right.
So whether it's one share or 10 shares, whatever, you know, I'm not telling anybody to throw your life savings at this thing
Hmm.
and double down. I'm saying put it on your radar in one way that you absolutely will pay attention to what's happening with the company. You know, go over to their IR page, sign up for the email alerts, right? Buy one share. Of course, when it takes off and goes to 4 and you only have one share, you're going to be pissed that you didn't have more.
That's right. I've done that before.
But at least you participate, right?
You can say you're in. Yes.
You can say you were in. There's nothing more frustrating for me than not being in it at all. I may
Uh,
not have my full position, and it goes, okay, I'll live with that. If I'm not in it at all, I beat myself up. Right? So I have to be at least in. I may
mhm.
not be at my full position, but I'm in, because you just can't predict when these kinds of things are going to happen, right? And this would be a binary event type thing that we already know the bad part. We already know that. I mean, I don't think he's going to raise it. You're not going to get triple damages, right? I think if anything, he brings that number down, because I just don't see how it's justified at all, right? You didn't make a boatload of money from this thing. So how is that justifiable? I just don't get it. So that's my belief. You can't time these things. You don't know when it's going to happen, but I think if it goes in your favor, the stock's going to react. It will react. And this will be a fun ride eventually. So that's it. All right. We'll do it in after June,
Yeah.
right around there.
2020. Yeah.
Okay, man. Thank you,
Sounds
Michael,
good.
for coming in and doing this. Hold on a second. I'm going to shut this off.
Of course. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you for tuning in to another CEO interview here at Alpha Wolf Capital. Today we had Michael Murray from Kopin, KOPN. I hope you enjoyed today's interview, and if you did, do us a favor, give us a like. How about giving us a share? And while you're at it, make sure you smash that subscribe button. All of those things are very important to us here at Alpha Wolf Capital, and we appreciate you taking the time to do that. Until next time, stay safe. Alpha Wolf Capital wishes you the very best of success.